Well, let me ask you a question. Well, that's not normally the way things start. I don't want to start that way. Let me ask you a question. What does it mean to be supernatural? Has anybody ever asked you that question? What does it mean to be supernatural? How would you respond to that? Will you take a moment to ponder this possibility? Uh, Maybe you weren't taught that you were a supernatural being. But can you accept the real possibility that you are already spiritual? Is that a possibility that you've thought about? Maybe you've heard about? Maybe you've seen it on social media posts about being supernatural, being spiritual. But I want to kind of explain that from a scientific point of view. Scientific. I want to talk about the sperm and the egg meat. That's something I've been talking about. What happens in this spiritual, what I call the spiritual birth, between what happens when God said in Genesis 1:28, be fruitful and multiply. So what does that mean to be fruitful and multiply? It simply means we reproduce after our own kind. When man and a woman come together, well, it creates birth. Sperm and the egg meet, and after about 40 weeks, we see this spirit being birthed by Father God through this process that we see that's been going on for eons. It's just the way it was set up by God. And like I say, after about 40 weeks, we arrive on this planet we call Earth with flesh on, and we see who we are. We can see each other in a species that we call male or female. But we were birthed by Father God. Let me say that up front. We were birthed in the process of being fruitful and multiply according to Genesis 1:28. And he set into motion before there was a Bible ever written. You understand that, I'm sure. This is the way that God planted humanity to reproduce. That is to be fruitful and multiply, and that is through birth, through the birthing process. Now we were a spirit being from God. He set it all up. It was his plan. But we don't hear that taught in the religious church system. In fact, I better have actually I haven't seen exactly what I'm talking about taught by anybody else. Actually, they'll allude to it in some way, but this is my interpretation that we're spirit beings with flesh. That's just a fact. In fact, that's a scientific fact that they can be documented. So all I'm saying today is uh, we're spirit beings with flesh on. We can see each other. And now we are to have dominion over the earth. That was a mandate from God. We are to have dominion. But you know what happened? Because we have gone awry and not understanding that, because down at the church, they told you that you were just a low down, rotten sinner, gonna bust hell wide open. That was the message primarily. It wasn't that you're a spirit being with flesh on, that you're a divine being. You're supernatural. You have, and I have. We've always had that power, but we didn't use it judiciously, properly, because we didn't have the understanding. We still had the power, but we had gone awry. We, we didn't use it correctly because we didn't ever know who we really were. In fact, most people don't know who they are. They don't know what they have, and they don't know what to do with what they do have. And that's the reason why I do Christocentric coaching, counseling, and mentoring. Yeah, and if you need a little help to get this sorted out, then send me an email shout out at Dr. Cecil at teachtruth.net. That's it. Just send me an email shout out, Dr. Cecil at teachtruth.net. I'll set up a free Zoom. Doesn't cost you anything. And let's sort that out where you understand that you are a spirit being, supernaturally, have always been, because that was God's plan. That was God's plan. Let me say it again, it was God's plan. But are we working within God's plan? No. We've gone our own way. We've brought havoc into this world. Because we have the power. It's innate. You have it. You are a supernatural being by default. Let me say it again. That's a power statement. You are a supernatural being by default. That's who you are. But are you acting like that? Well, probably not. And that's what I do as a Christocentric coach, counselor, and mentor. Let's look at it, see if I can kind of help you sort it out. Become the person that you've always meant to be. I'm Dr. Cecil Cochran. I'm the founder and president of American Seminary. And I'd love to chat with you about that with a Zoom. Send me a Zoom request at Dr. Cecil at teachtruth.net. That's teachtruth.net. So as I end everything I say and do, I always say just be blessed, my friends. Why? Because you already are, according to Ephesians 1:3.